So as you see, Danny's walking over to meet with the track and field athletes because that's what we got on the Coaches Show. Hey there, I'm Ryan Osborne. Myself and Danny Tinoco, we're going to be talking with some of the track athletes and coaches here this week on the Coaches Show. We talked to them earlier this year and it was all about how they start their season, how they become student athletes. Well, it's been 4 weeks. At this point, they're all student athletes. They're used to it. We want to talk to the coaches, also the athletes, on what that transition has been like getting back into the swing of things. So let's start things off with Coach Sheil. So we're here with Coach Sheil. And Coach, you know, the last time that we talked to you, it was about work ethic for these athletes in addition to being student athletes. Now you're more than halfway through the schedule. How have you seen your newer athletes transition from just barely getting into it into, all right, now we're used to the routine?
It's actually gone very well. When you say newer athletes, almost everyone is a newer athlete this year. Post-COVID, almost everyone on our team is a freshman. So they've adjusted very well. I get an eligibility check every week, you know, which always makes sense, and there have been literally no issues. Everybody's kind of rolling along. They're good students. Working pretty hard. You have your ups and downs and aches and pains, but they're really starting to come into their own, which makes us happy. We're still, conferences, third week and fourth week, the 22nd and the 29th, but we're going to be good. It's looking good.
I mean, Coach, when you mentioned conference, is there one specific thing that you have kind of told your newer athletes, as you mentioned, to watch out for in terms of that type of competition in conference?
Yeah, we try to go to meets that duplicate a lot of competition, put them under some stress and tension, and make them realize that it's good for them. A lot of them fear because they get nervous, which is normal, and I tell them it's normal. I go, if you weren't nervous, something would be wrong. That means you're not motivated enough. So we were in San Diego Mesa last week. It was a very big meet. It was a very long day. We didn't get home till about 10 p.m., but it was very good for them. I go, that's what a championship meet's like. It's long and you have to be ready. And after conference, it's all big meets. So we're trying to gear them up to that it won't just be a meet and a week off. It'll be 3 or 4 very big meets in a row.
I mean, as a coach, one thing that's big about this week here on the Coaches Show is the fact that the weather, very simply, is not very cooperative.
Not agreeable this week, yes.
Yeah, you started off with cold, you finish it off with a very, very warm temperatures. As a coach, how do you, we'll say, work around that with these athletes?
Yeah, you have to sometimes say, you know, most of these kids are from the area, so they're acclimated to heat. Now, it still can be tough when you get into the 90s. And, you know, for lack of a better term, I call our facility the frying pan because you have an artificial field and a track. It gets very hot out here. Last week on Monday, it poured down rain. That was probably worse because they're worse in those conditions. They're not used to rain. You know, their whole life has been a drought. So they do okay. We make adjustments. You go off a feel, you know, if you can tell they're getting queasy, right, and they're not sandbagging, it's hard. You just adjust accordingly and you make sure they're drinking enough water and ice, and half of them right now are in the ice bath behind us over there, so they're handling it well. So.
Coach, when you mention that, is that something that you have to also coordinate with the training staff, the athletic training staff here on campus, how to make sure they stay hydrated, have that schedule with them?
Absolutely. If conditions are really odd, the trainer will actually contact me. I mean, once you start getting triple digits, you have to pay attention to what's called wet bulb thermometer. What's the humidity? Usually here it's quite dry, so there's not an issue that way. But then, of course, hydration becomes an issue because it's so dry. Sweating can be difficult, things of that nature. Juan and Lorraine are great. If there's any weather conditions that are in play, they're usually contacting me before I contact them. So that's good.
Coach, thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is 90.1 KBPK. Here's the Coaches Show. I'm Daniel Tinoco, here today interviewing Coach Cisco. So, Coach Cisco, how is it working underneath Coach Sheil?
It's been great. Coach Sheil and even Coach Bevick have been helping me a lot get used to the college level. This is my first full season in the college level, so it's been really good. My first year was last year during COVID, so that was kind of an adjustment, but it's been really good. You know, team's doing really well. They're all getting along. It's a nice environment, and you know, I'm just happy to come to work every day.
So you did mention this was coming into your first technical year,
yes.
Right? So what were your expectations coming into coaching?
Honestly, I just came in ready to work. I didn't have big expectations. I didn't have small expectations, but I just knew that I needed to kind of start from nothing because of COVID kind of annihilated a lot of teams around here. So my first thing was let's just work with what I got and then grow from there. And I was able to go from, you know, 1 athlete during COVID to now we have a little bit over 20. So, and then this next year we're hoping to get, you know, double that, maybe even triple it. But it's been good. It's been a good experience, just learning how to, you know, maneuver through the different things that come with coaching.
So with track, it's pretty much every other month at this point, right, with the meets. How do you ramp up your athletes leading into being that there is such a large gap in between meets?
So we do have smaller competitions, like every so often. We have gone a couple of weeks back to back, but like for now we have a 3-week break after this, 2-week break after this week. We just kind of train through it. I pay attention to how the athletes are responding to our workouts and also ask for their feedback just to see how they're doing. It's a long season because we've been training since, a lot of us have been training since August for this season, and it's a full year commitment. But you know, I just listen to everybody. I watch how they look, and I just pay attention to their body language, you know, and just make sure that they're not forcing themselves to try to do something that they shouldn't be doing that could lead to injury. So it's more, I just pay attention to them. It's being attentive and just focusing on what they need to develop versus like me having, okay, we're doing this, this, and this today. You know, it's like you have to be able to adapt. That's what I've learned, is to each situation to develop specific people.
So leading up, building a team is very important, building a culture. What kind of culture do you want to build here?
So the culture that I've been trying to build and we are building is, I don't know if you can hear them in the back, but they're all talking right now, is just a family. You know, we come here, we work. Not everybody is going to be the elite, you know, full scholarship athlete, but when you come here, it's a place for you to come, learn to work hard, learn to work with other people, and learn to just, you know, get uncomfortable and learn to deal with it. Because in life, you know, we get uncomfortable, and a lot of people tend to pull back when they get uncomfortable. I like to teach my athletes to be uncomfortable, or to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, so that way if something happens to them, they learn to look for solutions and not focus on the problem. So with them, I just try to make it close, you know, make them enjoy, because track, you know, it's tough. You run in a circle. You know, that's kind of the basic gist of track. So I try to make it as fun as possible, make it as light as possible. I do have, obviously, structure, but I'm also very relaxed, and like I let the kids talk and I let the athletes, you know, go through their warm-up in their own way, just because everybody gets ready for game day differently. So it's for me, it's about creating a space for people to be comfortable with themselves, but also they know that they have to work hard when they're here.
So you did mention creating a sort of mental fortitude in terms of being able to adapt to uncomfortability.
Yeah.
How would you say you go about that? Like what kind of mental strength training, or just strength training in general goes
The main thing is obviously running. That's the main thing. Track is a lot of running, but I do a lot of I talk to them a lot. You know, I just let them know, like, hey, I know it sucks, I know it hurts, but I need you to focus on what you have to do, not what is hurting. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all there in life. Things are gonna hurt, things are gonna bother you, but it's how you handle yourself in those situations that. So I just kind of more it's a positive talk. You know, I encourage them to try, and I don't force them to do anything that they absolutely cannot do. I just try to motivate them to see if they can do it and figure it out. And if they can't, that's cool. At least you tried. I respect that. You know. And we'll go from there. This is where we stop today. Let's try to move next time a little bit farther. And I like to point out how far we've come versus like a lot of these guys in the beginning, what we would do for a workout is now our warm-up. So, you know, and even then, what we do for some of our warm-ups is harder than what it would have been for a full workout when they first started. So I just like to show them their progress of where they started and where they're at now, and how they've developed, and that usually shows them like, oh wow, you know, I'm actually doing something, and you know, that's where I try to focus the most, is development.
So you did mention that you want to help build confidence and just build every athlete's ability. Yeah. Would you say you're very happy with how far they've come since the beginning? Yeah,
so everybody, for the most part, I want to say, has ran a personal best in some event. There have been some issues because of COVID, obviously, people have gotten sick. We all actually got got sick in the beginning when everybody caught it, right after Christmas, we all got it. So we all had to take 2 weeks off, which set us all back. And other people who got hurt, from other things that were out of our control. But for the most part, everybody's developed, everybody's looking great. They're, firing, they're happy after practice. Before they used to be laid out, tired. Now they're, able to hang out, talk, and, go out to eat and stuff like that. So, yeah.
We'd like to thank Coach Cisco for his time here on the Coaches Show. I'm Daniel Tinoco, and this is the Coaches Show.
Thank you.
90.1 KBPK.
All right, thank you.
This is the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK. I'm Daniel Tinoco. Today I'm interviewing Annaliese Powell on the Fullerton track team. So, Annaliese, running for Fullerton, how would you describe would just be the overall culture in this team?
I'd say we're hardworking. We go out and we try our best every single day. At least that's what I try to do. I try to put my best effort out, and I'd say I've made a lot of friends on this team, so I really like it here, yeah.
So, being that it is inching towards the spring and towards the summer, the weather's going to get very hot soon.
Yep.
How would you say would be your adjustments towards the heat as it gets a lot stronger?
Drinking more water and stretching out after every single workout. In general, those are the things that I work on, like even during the winter. But also wearing sunscreen is very important. That's about it.
And then jumping off the seasons question, being that track is essentially just a year-long sport, how do you make adjustments in between seasons as it gets colder or as it gets hotter?
So during the off season, it's a lot different than on season. Like we don't wear spikes. We just we do more different workouts, I'd say, than on season. And because of that, I'd say my body adjusts to the different weather, and I guess I go off of that.
And then also jumping off the year long, being that during track season the meets aren't very consistent as far as they're not every other week unless in short terms. How would you say you gear yourself up or ramp yourself up for those very long stretches of time in between matches?
In between our meets? Well, we practice every single day, so in between meets I'm working on staying in shape, so I do the 400 hurdles and the 100 hurdles, so that means I have to kind of work on my hurdle form a little bit. And that's what I tried to do in between meets. I look at what I did in my last race, how I performed maybe, and I tried to think about next week and working on what I can do to improve during that time.
So, being that you mentioned you do the hurdles as well as running the relays without the hurdles,
Yep.
what would you say would be the mental adjustments with the hurdles you have to really tunnel vision? How would you say would be the major discrepancies between the two?
Between the relay and the hurdles? So for the relay, I'd say it depends. For the 4x1, that's at the very beginning of the race, or of the meet. So it's definitely a different mentality I go into it. I just try to go through it and get it out of the way, basically. And then my 100 hurdles, my 400 hurdles, it's a lot of, I guess, preparing for that moment. And then by the end of the race, I have my 4x4. By that time, I'm normally pretty tired. So I do a light warm up before that, and then I try to just power through it basically. So it depends what part of the race I'm in, I guess, or what part of the day and which race I'm going to do, that I just try to prepare myself mentally for that race.
So we were speaking to Coach Cisco before, and he said for the culture he wants to instill, he wants to be able to create an adaptation in every runner's mind that they want to overcome the uncomfortability when it comes to races and stuff like that. How would you say, what were the kind of methods he would use and how have they worked for you?
So what my coach has been telling me, basically the entire year, is he's been trying to work up my confidence, I'd say, in my races, because he's been telling me that I need to work on being more confident in my running because I'm a lot stronger than I think I am when I'm running. And that's definitely something that I've been trying to work past, like trying to stay strong throughout the entire race and mentally just like getting, being strong there.
So you talked about mentality. As for you personally, do you feel like you are where you want to be, or do you want to, is there some things you want to improve on?
I think there's always something you can improve on, but currently I know I'm a lot stronger than I was last year, mentally and physically, and I think I can improve. Like, I think I can go out of the block faster if I just push myself harder through that. That's something I've been struggling with, like getting out of the block fast and staying on it. So that's something that I can improve on, but I'm also a lot better than I was before.
We would like to thank Annaliese Powell for her time here for the interview. I'm Daniel Tinoco, and this is The Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK.
So we are here with Leon Jett of the track and field team. And Leon, the last time that we talked to you was all about kind of starting off the season well, getting that rhythm, that feel back. How do you feel that you've performed so far to this point?
So far, I feel that I performed very good. Right now, I'm second in the state in the 400 hurdles. Prior, when the season began, my first meet, I was ranked 7th. So I bumped up 5 spots to second in the state right now.
A lot of times people kind of look at track and field athletes, especially if you're running around the track looking for that time or that time that you like. They always say, oh, well, you know what? You're just running for personal records. You're not running against anyone else. When it comes to your mentality, especially if you got people in the lanes next to you, are you running to beat your own personal record or time, or are you running to beat the person in the lane next to you?
For me, I run to beat my time because I believe that each race is going to be different. So sometimes you'll have faster people than you. Other times you'll have people that run slower times. So I feel that it's best to run against the clock because at the end of the day, you're running because you want a PR.
What is one thing right off the blocks that tells you, okay, this is going to be a good time for me?
Right off the blocks, to see if I have a good time, it's to get out the blocks fast because for track, this race starts when you get out the blocks. If you get out the blocks too slow, it's harder to maintain a speed. If you get out the blocks faster, it's easier to maintain a faster speed because you're running at a faster pace when you begin.
I'm from a hockey background. One of the biggest things people do for reaction time is they'll toss a tennis ball around against a wall, make sure that they have their reaction time going and their arms going as well before they play. When it comes to your preparation, you've got to have a solid reaction time getting off the blocks. How do you make sure that you get good at that reaction time from the moment it's time to go?
So at practice, it starts at practice. So at practice, I practice my starts. So as soon as the coach says, on your marks, get set, go, that's when I know I have to go. So I just try to listen closely to the ready, set, go, and then base my timing off the ready, set, go because you can win and lose races at the start. A lot of times, like the short sprints, 100, the 200, you win the race out of the blocks. I run a 400, so I can kind of try to build up and run faster, catch my pace, but the start's very important for track athletes.
You mentioned that 400. Have you ever found yourself, maybe even this season, in a spot where you go, okay, this first turn isn't where I want it to be, now I've got to run X amount of time to make that up?
Mm-hmm. I would say this past meet, so my lead leg for my hurdles is my left leg, and at the second hurdle, I entered the hurdle with my right leg. So my right leg was my lead leg, so it threw me off. So I just had to hurdle because at the end of the day, I'd rather hurdle than stutter step. So it threw me off in my head. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? So I just went over the hurdle with my right leg and then it ended up smooth. And then after that, I just had to pick up my pace because I knew that I wanted to hit my left leg each time because that's the leg I've hurdled with for the past 8 years.
I mean, speaking of which is the most difficult hurdle for you?
I would say either the second hurdle or the 8th hurdle off the turn because I would say it's harder to hurdle off a turn than a straightaway. It's easier to run a hurdle on a straightaway than a curve because curve, it curves over, so it's easier to run a straightaway.
I mean, when you mention those curve hurdles, do you find yourself having to kind of change your foot positioning versus where you would on a straightaway?
I would say yes, because coming in a curve, it's not straight. It's obviously easier to run straight because it's a straight line. So yeah, I would say it's definitely different.
What's the biggest thing that you did in the off season preparing for this year that has helped you?
I would say getting my body right, eating healthy, and then just working on getting my hamstring stronger, because last season at Delaware State University, I pulled my hamstring and I had 3 tears, so I'm coming off rehab. I rehabbed for 6 months. So I'm just making sure my body's healthy and I'm in the right mindset to run.
I mean, you mentioned that diet. A lot of people, they don't realize just the pure work that goes into that. They just think, you track athletes, you've got that metabolism, you can eat whatever you want and still go out there. When you look at your preparation, what changed for you so that way you can tell yourself, hey, this is how I prepare to be better?
So for my body, I kind of compare it to a car. So like, you don't want to put bad gas in a car or old oil in a car. So I just try to eat healthy, eat for a lot of fruit, a lot of vegetables, a lot of greens, so that I can perform at this high speed rate, because at the end of the day, track, we're running as fast as we can. And if you're not eating properly, then you can cause injuries or just be out of shape in general. So just eat healthy.
When you have a hot day like today, we've already asked your fellow athletes, in addition to your coaches, they all say, hey, you know what, all you got to do is hydrate, you'll be fine. Just kind of look at what the track's performing like that day and you'll be fine. When it comes to your preparation, how does the heat kind of affect the way that you run?
The heat definitely makes it harder to run. So for me, I try to stay out the sun as much as possible, because the sun drains my energy. Like, I'm wearing a hat right now, so I just try to stay out the sun and then drink a lot of fluids, because if I'm going to stay in the sun all day, then all my energy is going to be absorbed out of me.
Do you feel that the track conditions can vary based on how hot or cold it is?
Definitely. Like our last meet in San Diego, it was so windy. So I'm used to the wind and like the rain, because I practice on the East Coast, so I practice in snow. So it didn't really bother me last week, but definitely like hot weather is, I would say it's not too hot's fine, but if it's hot, then that can be a little harder to run, but I'd rather it be hot than rain.
Is there one specific track that you have run on throughout your career so far that you have said, okay, if I never see this track again, it'll be way too soon?
I would say the Armory in New York City. It's a big indoor track. A lot of big meets are held there. I like the track because it had like the 2 nice banks, and then when you run on a turn, it feel like you're like floating in the air. So yeah, I'd say the Armory in New York City. It's a nice
Awesome.
track.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and
Thank
best
you.
of luck the rest of the
Thank
season.
you, I appreciate it.
This is the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK. I'm Daniel Tinoco here with Malila Miranda, who is an athlete here on the Fullerton track team. So, Malila, you did mention before you do 4 sports, being the javelin, the discus, the shot put, and the hammer. I want to emphasize more on the shot put and the hammer, being that the only main difference between the 2 is just the chain. So, in regards of the 2 being similar but yet very different, how you go about each event for those 2?
So with each event, although it may seem like the only difference is the chain, it's a lot more than that. It's all about like foot placement, because like in the hammer, you're constantly spinning and spinning, and the release is right here, whereas the shot, it's on your neck. And it's all about like foot placement. For every event, actually, it's like the footwork is different, and it's tough to get all of them down, but you know, it's a work in progress. So, yeah.
So as far as technique goes, obviously technique, it's something that you have to do repeatedly over and over. You have to think about it. How do you go about that?
So with that, like when it comes to practice, I even set something in the ring just so like a towel, for instance. I'll set a towel in the ring just so I can look down and like I have something to look at to release like whatever I have. It's just all about technique, where your eyes are, where your foot is, and you know, practicing that. Like I said, I do the towel just so I have something to catch my eye, or when I'm throwing disc or hammer, I set a water bottle in the back of the ring, because that's my home. That's where I got to release. So yeah, that's what I do for technique.
So in other sports that do involve throwing some sort of object, there is something called release point. You know about this, right? So
Yes.
For the release point, how do you know when to release the shot put or the chain?
So I know when to release it, so in the ring, I think of it like a clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. When I'm spinning, my feet need to be at 9 o'clock, or like 6 o'clock, then 3 o'clock, then 12 o'clock. When I see that 12 o'clock on my third spin for hammer, that's when I release. So it's just like a mental thing, and you got to really picture it. Whereas shot put, I think of it kind of like the same thing, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and I need to be looking down at my right foot when I'm doing my spin for shot put, and then that's when I release.
So you did mention in your explanation for the other sports, there is a lot of spinning involved. And with that, there is that thinking of, oh, I could get dizzy. How do you recover from that, being that you spun multiple times very quickly? How do you not become dizzy? What do you do to really fight that feeling?
So to fight the feeling, like, I don't really think of like, okay, I'm gonna spin and then throw. I think about more of like my finish, how much power I can put into my throw. But let's say if I do get really dizzy, I'll walk out after my throw and I find a straight line and I just follow the straight line, and then I don't become dizzy anymore.
So topping off the topic of just motions in general, you also do the javelin throw. Javelin throw doesn't require as much spinning. However, there is a very intricate motion where you reach back all the way and throw it. What kind of flexibility training do you do for that?
Flexibility training while in a weight room, as well as at my own gym that I go to. I do like some type of yoga sometimes, just to really like just stretch out like my lower body, my lats, whatever. I always have a band with me to really stretch out my shoulders, because in javelin you really have to like get a lean back, you know, to be able to throw. And with tense muscles, you're not gonna be able to throw it that far. So it's always about stretching out, and yeah, I have an elastic band with me all the time.
So speaking of the training aspect, being that pretty much all these sports, including throwing something that's very heavy, what kind of strength training do you do? Like, what is your regimen throughout the day to really ramp yourself up into each and every throw?
So we go to weight room pretty much every day during the week. Monday it's always legs, and then as well as my gym too. Later on in the day I hit legs again, and then Tuesday is upper body, Wednesday legs again, and then Thursday upper body as well. And we do like squats, deadlifts, bench press, all those kinds of heavyweight workouts, because you got to have muscles to throw. So, yeah.
So the last time we spoke to you, you were just beginning to start setting PRs for yourself, or further throws than before. From then to here, how much do you think you've improved, and how much would you like to still improve?
Okay, so I've improved a lot. Last time I was just like barely starting to pick up disc. Honestly, I didn't see myself going that far with it because I had just picked it up, but I've been working at it and getting better all the time and every day. And my PR with that would be like, I want to throw like at least 100 in disc. Right now I'm at 93 feet. Hammer 2, I PR'd. My record last time when I spoke with you guys was 90 feet. It's also at 93 feet now. I'm trying to get to 100 as well. And then shot put, I'm learning how to spin now. My PR for that is like a 27 something. My PR before that was like 25 feet. So now I jumped 2 feet more. I'm trying to get to 30 feet by the end of the season, hopefully. And then with javelin too, I'm trying to hit 20 meters, which is roughly about like 64-ish feet. Yeah, with that, I'm also doing well too. I'm trying to still get over that. I'm finding new techniques that work better for me. So yeah, I'm doing very well.
So focusing, like bouncing off the technique question, obviously with every technique, there's a special mentality you have, like to really get yourself into that zone to really get the really max distance you want. Where do you go mentally for that?
So mentally with every throw, I just kind of tell myself, you got to do it. You got to commit to it. Once your feet start moving across the ring or the runway for javelin, like, you got to commit to it. And that's where I go. Like, you got to do it. You got to finish it. And before you finish it, you got to give it your all. And it'll show in the distance that you give. So that's where I go mentally.
We would like to thank Malila Miranda for her time here on the Coaches Show. I'm Daniel Tinoco. This has been the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK.
So we want to thank all the track and field athletes for joining us here on the Coaches Show, and then also want to thank the coaching staff for track and field at Fullerton College. For Danny Tinoco, I'm Ryan Osborne, thanking you for joining us. You've been watching the Coaches Show on 90.1 KBPK.